Hello and welcome. He's nicknamed the Spiderman, but unlike his comic book counterpart, he doesn't possess special powers, just incredible focus as he scales some of the world's highest buildings. His climbs, often illegal and controversial, have nevertheless put him in the Guinness Book of Records. This week at 101, meet the French-born celebrity climber Alain Robert. His passion for scaling rocks and cliffs began at a young age, and despite the discouragement of his parents, Alain Robert continued to climb. The early years saw him tackling natural surfaces in a more traditional climbing style, but the real headline-grabbing adventures began in 1994, when a sponsor suggested he might try skyscrapers, and the idea of the Spiderman was born. Becoming the world's best-known and record-breaking urban climber came at a price. A number of falls have left Robert with a body bearing scars and internal metal bracing from some severe injuries. And each climb takes its toll, but that's never stopped him from pursuing his passion. Neither have the authorities, whom in some countries have arrested the nimble Frenchman, fined him and put him behind bars. But as soon as a building grabs his attention, Robert is quickly drawing a crowd, as he did, for example, when he climbed the world's tallest tower, the 828-meter Burj Khalifa in Dubai, in March 2011. He says he tends not to discuss the dangers of his profession too deeply with his family, although there are signs his influence is making its mark on his children, and his home is modified to allow him lots of practice. Nowadays he mostly climbs with permission, and often the promotion that goes with it. But he's still willing to fall foul of the authorities if he really wants to climb a building. Alain, I'm delighted to have some time with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much too.
It's going to surprise a lot of people seeing what you do. To realize or to know that you have vertigo, the spells of dizziness people get, a balance issue. Now, that's really quite remarkable considering you get up to the highest buildings. Tell me about that and how you've managed to overcome that.
Actually, after I fell year 1982, I was having two choices. Either I was just stopping climbing and it was completely giving up in my dreams, or I was fighting, and actually I did choose to fight.
What drives you? What is that thing inside you that says, I've got to get up to the top of that building?
Not really, actually. This is an old dream, meaning as a young boy, I am having to start by the beginning. I was shy, I was afraid of height, I was lacking of self-confidence, but as a boy, you're having heroes, and I dreamt I wanted to be like Zorro, Robin Hood, D'Artagnan, and of course, I was having to do something. Of course, it took a bit of time, but here we are.
And you've actually been nicknamed the Spiderman. That's how a lot of people know you. In fact, you climbed once, I think, in Venezuela in a Spiderman outfit.
You're right, yeah, because actually they were promoting the film. It's when it has been launched for the first time, and then some of the countries, they did ask me, they were, I guess, in touch with Marvel, and they did ask me what I could climb. So they made the outfit, they took my measurements and everything, and they made it quite identical, and I did climb.
Now, I know it's interesting, I read in an interview how you said you were born to like taking risks, and that this is your way of life. And I wonder what limits are there for you. At what point does the risk factor become too high, the point where you say, I can't do this?
Oh, I can easily, if I am having the feeling that it is too dangerous, then I'm not going to do it. Of course, maybe my way of seeing things is slightly different than yours or other people. They may think, a lot of people do not like risk. They like to have a safe life, a comfortable life, because their red zone is much lower than mine. It's just that let's say that I didn't born like that, because as I said, I was afraid of everything. But I did build something, and then I became, and meaning that nowadays my red zone is quite high.
Now, I want to take you back. I know you were born in Dogoindo. Your actual home area was Valence. And I guess it would have been a very different environment from the cityscapes that you're so used to now. Tell me about the earliest memories you have.
Earliest memories is... Actually, Valence, it's in one side there is Ardèche, which there is some cliff, and the other side this is Vercors, which also there is some cliff. And then when I have started to climb, it was not, the formal way, because at that time climbing was, it was not like now. Now there is climbing walls everywhere. Whenever you are, a children, you start to climb when you are 3, 4, 5. And but at that time, climbing was completely, nobody was knowing about climbing. And then this is through the Boy Scout.
That's right. But you did that because your parents were worried about you doing those kind of sports, I guess. So you kind of learned quietly to do all the climbing stuff, yeah? Because
my parents, they were not really aware about the things that I was doing. I did write everything in a book, and then my mom, she was shocked when she read the book, because she told me, you did so many things, and actually we were not knowing anything about it.
How was the relationship with your parents? What were they like in the characters?
Very good, because, when you are young, usually you are a bit rebellious, but once you are getting older, usually you are having the tendency to get more wisdom.
What were the characteristics you got from each of them that you think is in your character?
It's difficult. Actually, my mom, she's quite nervous. She's a bit... My dad was very cool, very quiet, so... From my dad, it's even difficult to tell you.
But it was interesting because I gather your interest in climbing, though, came from a movie you saw about two brothers who used to climb. Tell me about that and what it was that triggered that desire in you.
Yeah, you're right. This is actually actually this movie has been inspired by a novel written by Henri Troyat, The Grieving Snow. It's a plane who crashed near the top of Mont Blanc, and then those two brother guides, they decide to seek survivors. And then they are having to climb a steep mountain. I was not knowing anything. I didn't even know that there was such a vertical. I didn't know that there was a human being who could be capable to climb something vertical. And then I've been amazed. And this is how I have understood that this is what I wanted to do with my life. And that one day I would become one of them.
Is it true that the story that goes around that when you were about 12 years old or so, that you had left your keys behind from your home and you climbed 8 floors up to get into the apartment?
Yeah, this is exactly what's happened, meaning that I went back home because I had finished school earlier because of missing teachers, and then I realized that I was not having my key. And then instead of being stuck until 7 p.m., where my parents were coming back, then that was so long that I was watching the burning. That was maybe a year or two, and then I've decided, wow, here we are, this is now. And then I did it. Even though, when I did start, I wasn't really sure that it was such a good idea, but still, I really did try to push myself. And that was a fantastic moment in my life.
Oh, you were very young as well, of course.
I was young. I was 11 or something like that. Now, of course, it's far away. I've kind of forgotten. But I know that actually it has been one of the greatest moments in my life. And it has changed my life forever.
Valence, the area you said had cliffs, and you started training on those cliffs. At what stage did your parents get an idea that you were starting to do all this stuff? Your mother said she didn't know until she read the book, but did they have any idea?
They knew, but I guess they couldn't really put the pictures on it, meaning it's not something that we are seeing on TV. There wasn't any magazine, so it's like, okay, my son is climbing, so what does it mean? Sometimes, people that are telling me, you look like familiar. What are you doing? And I'm saying I'm climbing building, and they scratch their head. What do you mean?
It's interesting because the buildings came in a little later when Sector, one of the watch and accessories company, came to you looking for a sponsorship and suggested buildings. What made you think that was a good idea then?
Well, at first I thought that it was not even possible. I just took the chance. Those people, they were offering me a nice trip in US, going to New York, going to Chicago, going to Dallas, to Houston. So why not? I was just thinking, at the very worst, I'm still having a nice trip for nearly 10 days. And if I can't do anything, fine. And if I can, why not? And finally, once I was there, I realized that there was a big potential.
Now, of course, you train, and I'll get onto that a bit later, but to what degree do you think you were born to do this, in the sense that your size, your weight to strength ratio, the way you've been able to develop, because it's quite a unique skill?
Well, it didn't take long for me to realize that I was having to keep my body light, because everything is about your weight and your strength. So if you are too big, if you are too heavy, it doesn't work. So that's why for the kind of size as mine, you need to be light. That's why I keep on trying, not to be more than 52, 53 kg.
And in terms of the kind of training you do, how do you keep yourself in shape?
Oh, at home I am having a nice climbing wall on my ceiling. There is about 40 square meters, and then I am hanging my body nearly up to 20 minutes, just moving on the ceiling, rotating, which is huge, because actually the distance that I am doing in 20 minutes, it's like more than 100 meters. So it's a bit like if I was climbing from here all the way there and coming back, just hanging my body like a bat. In fact, not like a Batman, so finally I became the Spiderman.
You're going to have to forgive me, because I do have to ask you the questions I'm sure you get a million times. Be patient with me. First of all, the toughest climb.
The toughest, maybe that was climbing the Sears Tower, in terms of technical difficulties. But the toughest one, also in terms of difficulties, but legal issues, was the Petronas in Kuala Lumpur.
The Burj Khalifa in Dubai is currently the tallest man-made structure, 828 meters, 2,717 feet, and you went right up there. Tell me how that got going, because that's of course means you've been to the highest point when it comes to man-made structures.
Yeah, it's interesting because first of all, it took 6 hours. I think it's 6 hours, 13 minutes and 55 seconds. Wow. Because that was the Guinness World.
Right.
So I don't know, but they wanted me to climb. I was supposed to do the fastest ascent, which I was telling them, it doesn't make sense. Nobody has ever climbed. Even though it takes 2 years for me to climb Burj Khalifa, it will be the fastest ascent. But well, that's just a little joke, which I find it weird. But yeah, this is an interesting building because it's tall. It's not even tall, it's huge, but it's also very difficult. Meaning that I have climbed, for example, Jinmao Tower in China, which is already 421 meters. I went to the top, I did climb down. I wanted to avoid the kind of problems that I got in Japan. I knew that doing something illegal in China, maybe I was risking to get bitten by the cops once at the top. So that's why I've decided to climb down. So if you do multiply going to the top and climbing down, it becomes 840 meters.
Well, it's interesting because some of the climbs you do are legal in the sense of they're legally organized and you have the authorities' permission. And many of you decide, well, I'm just going to do it even if I'm not allowed to. How do you balance out which ones you're willing to take the chance of going to?
It's very much also about knowing about the different rules. And also, I guess, years ago, I was a bit more daring. Because I got nothing to lose. I was having a lot of... I was free. Nowadays, I know that next week I will be giving a speech in Berlin. In 3 weeks' time, I will be going to Malaysia. So, my schedule is quite tight. So I can't really afford to do as much naughty things as before. Because it became also something a bit different. So sometimes, yes, I'm having some regret that before I used to be a bit more free than now.
Now, you mentioned or alluded to earlier, you have been actually roughed up by the authorities, and you were saying Japan was a place where they actually, when you got to the top, they were pretty brutal on you.
Yeah, they did punch my face, but of course, people are not really knowing why. Actually, it's because on the day before, the cops, they saw me, they knew that I was going to climb their building, and then they did tell me that the law was very strict, very tough in Japan, and not to do it. And still, the next day, I came back, I was hidden in the trunk of a car, and I did it successfully. And once they were waiting for me at the top, they didn't realize that there was somebody filming from inside the helicopter, and then they have punched my face many times, And of course, it has been seen on TV.
It's interesting, the two serious accidents that you had in 1982 were both when you were using equipment. There was one time in January when your anchor rope gave way and you dropped about 15 meters, nearly 50 feet. And the second time was in September the same year when your rope came undone while you were abseiling or rappelling, as it's often called. And I wonder, and you actually ended up in a coma for about 5 days, I think, after that accident, along with all the fractures and things you had. Did you ever reach a point, maybe after that second one, where you actually think twice about continuing?
No, never. You know, that's a good thing with me. I am very volunteer. Actually, I found out my way of living when I was 8. When I saw the movie, I knew that I wanted so badly to become a climber, and this is what I have done all along. And even though I was completely broken, there was one thing I was thinking, okay, when I will be able to climb again. And I remember, you know, when I spoke to one of the best surgeons, and I told him that I wanted to climb again, and he said, look, you're okay, there is 10 years that I am a specialist on hand surgery, and it's the first time in my life that I'm seeing some wrists so broken. It's not broken, it's smashed. It's like 2 omelettes. So what do you want me to tell you? Do you think that you're going to be able to climb again? Never.
Sometimes there are like freak accidents, though. In 2004, you were on a traffic light posing for a picture for an interview.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like 2 meters, 6.5 feet or so off the ground. But you smashed up your elbow pretty badly, and I think 15 stitches in that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was bad. And plus, for me, it was it was really difficult because it was 14 days before climbing the tallest building in the world, Taipei 101. At that time, there was no Burj Khalifa.
Yeah, well, that's right. You were taking a risk because you had 15 stitches in your arm and just
I didn't say anything to the people. I met my friend, the surgeon, the one who once told me that I was not going to climb again. In between, he became my close friend. He has understood my mind, my philosophy. And then he told me, I quickly went to the hospital. I've been operated because he was having to liberate the nerve. Because actually, I couldn't feel anymore those 2 fingers. So with only 2 fingers, you cannot climb.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you say that the accidents have left you around 66% disabled. Well, how do you work that out?
Actually, it's just a number. Let's say that I am using the remaining for climbing. Meaning that in every human being, there is a potential. But sometimes, some people, they are not having the guts to use it. I think we are all having this kind of potential. There is nothing magical. It's very much about the willpower, about, what you want to do or what you don't want to do.
How do you control the fear when you're in these places where you're obviously quite vulnerable? How do you, it's a pretty scary situation for most people. Is it that you can avoid feeling scared or you just know how to control that?
No, because actually when you are in between life and death, I guess in every human being we are always picking staying alive. For me, it's quite simple. I am not planning to suicide, at least not today, neither tomorrow. So, meaning that even though I am in a big shit, in a bad situation, I'm still going to fight as a tiger because I want to reach the top and I want to be sure that I am alive.
So there's no fear, though, when you're going up?
During, not much, actually. I am, when you are so concentrated on something, as you know, it's in between life and death. Yeah. We are not talking about money. We are not talking about, forgetting to pay your bills. We are talking about life and death. It is serious.
How do you feel about when crowds gather? Do you find the crowds disconcerting, or is it actually encouraging?
I have really loved, reaching the top of the Petronas in Kuala Lumpur, because it was an old dream. It took 13 years, 3 attempts. First one, I get caught on the 60th. I have discovered the Malaysian jail. I have understood that it was no joke. They could be really mad. After 10 years, I have decided to try again. I get caught at the same level. And then I was thinking, okay, now it's done. And I did wait again another 2 years, and then I was reconsidering again about trying. I spoke to some of the best lawyers in Kuala Lumpur, and then they told me, if you want my advice, I wouldn't climb because you may land in jail for 3 years. And you know how bad are jails in KL? And I said, yes. And I spent a week in KL, and every day, finally, I was doing other stuff, and I kind of forget what all of these people told me. And then I was also the guy that came for filming the ascent. I was thinking, now I am having a real strategy to succeed. I have decided that I was going to put chances on me. I did carry with me a Malaysian flag. I did fix on my pants and on my shirt one Malaysia, which is the logo of the new Prime Minister. And I was thinking, at least let's try to make Malaysia proud about my ascent. And then even though they did something, it was just a slap on the wrist. I spent a night in a lockup. The next day I saw the judge. I got a little fine. I've been charged for trespass. I did pay 400 euros, and then I was free. And then I got an award.
Ironic, yeah. Who are your mentors? Who are the people? I know when you were growing up, these famous climbers were part of the people you admired, but have there been people who've guided you through your life?
Not really. Actually, as a young boy, yes, I was a little bit inspired by Reinhold Messner, by René de Maison, that kind of people, because what they were doing was more like adventure. Meaning, nowadays, climbing is too much a sport. And at the end of the day, it is very specialized. So nobody knows the climber.
It's interesting. I mean, of course, people imagine adventurers and climbers to be real solitary figures, but you got married, you've got kids. I mean, what's the reaction from the family?
The thing is, I was already climbing when I met my wife. Then when my kids born, I was also climbing. So it's just something, let's say that there is kind of unspoken rules. We don't speak that much about it at home, and that's fine.
Although I think your younger son climbs.
He used to climb a bit, when he was 2, 3, 4, and then now no longer. Now he's 16, but there's a long, long time that he hasn't climbed.
A lot of people don't realize you actually raise money for charity in a lot of the climbs you do. How do you decide around that? How do you really focus on certain causes?
Actually, I have realized that life is a bit of a circle. So at first, I was afraid. I wanted to become courageous. I became courageous, but climbing a building free solo is not that much of being courageous. Being courageous is helping people. And then that was the next step. And that's why I've decided, putting my life at danger, it's fine, but at the end of the day, I'm just a piece of meat, 52 kg. If I die, it's nothing. But that's why I've decided that I wanted to do something with that skill. And I've decided to be involved in different charities.
And you got entered into the Guinness Book of Records and have received many awards. It's ironic, coming from a position of infamy and getting arrested to have all these awards now. And I wonder again if that's a strongly encouraging thing, because I know, as you say, life has come full circle and there are other priorities, but presumably the awards are a good feeling, getting that encouragement.
Getting an award, of course, it's a good feeling, but I think it's a much, much better feeling helping some people who are needing to get help. Like if you are famished, if you are having no shelter, or if you are sick and you can't afford to get a medicine or being through some operation. So that's why, for me, this is the ultimate stage.
Have you set yourself a limit where you say there'll come a point where I can't or I won't climb anymore? Have you set yourself a cut-off point?
Yes and no, meaning that sometimes I do think about it, but actually I also realize that as long as I'm in good health, why should I stop?
Well, it's a question, of course, that I wish you a long life, but how would you like to be remembered? What would you like to be your living legacy?
A living legacy would be as somebody inspiring, who did dare to challenge his life to achieve his dreams.
And I wish you a lot of luck. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.